All right, Mehdi, I think we're going to get going and then people can join. So welcome to everybody. I am Ann Walsh Henderson, and I am the Executive Director of Westfield. And we are so very happy to have each one of you here. We have people registered who are coming from India, from the United States, from Canada, from Israel, from Brazil, from Turkey, from Liberia. It's very exciting. And I think very reflective of who Westfield is. So what I'm going to do first, as all debaters, Primo will know this, one of our students was on the call, I'm going to signpost, which basically means tell you what's going to happen. What I'm going to say is basically, what we're going to talk about basically is divided into different parts today. First, I'm going to just give you a little bit of background about who Westfield is and what we do. Then we're going to dive into camp and explain all about camp. And then you have a very, very rare treat today. You have an exhibition debate from two of our most amazing debaters. One is a current Westfielder and one is a just recently former Westfielder. And you are going to get to participate in the debate, and we'll explain how in 1 second. Before I get started, let me just explain the procedure. So normally, as I said, we have everybody's video on whenever we're together. But today we're keeping them off. We're going to record this and put it on the website so other people who couldn't join us today will be able to watch it, and we wanted to respect your privacy. So how it will work though, as with everything with Westfield, we want it to be very interactive and engaging. So we have a chat that we're monitoring, and we encourage you to write questions in it. If you have any questions at all, we'll have a specific question time at the end of the exhibition debate, but I love to have questions throughout, so don't hesitate. And let me just quickly introduce the people that you can see their videos on. This is Madeline Chill. And Madeline is our marketing and communications lead coordinator. And she will be the primary person running the chat. If you want, you can't say hi, Madeline. Are you muted? Yeah.
I can. Hi, everyone. Hi, really cool to see, well, I guess see all the names, less faces, more names. But I'll be here anytime you have a question about anything. I'm here, I'm on the chat, and we will run the conversation that way.
Thanks, Meta. And I also would like to introduce Deidre, who is our program and communications coordinator. And she too will be helping out with all the technological and questions. And then you'll get to meet the other two wonderful people on this chat that you can see, Julia and Patrick, when we get to the debate. Okay, so who we are and what we do. Westfield Academy is a community debate, model UN, and leadership school. It is now amazingly 16 years old. We always say we're a true community school because we are foremost a community. We began in Connecticut. We had a physical location here for many years, but even prior to the pandemic, we had virtual international classes. And then in early 2020, when the pandemic hit, we have become fully virtual, and we started dramatically expanding internationally. So our mission is to empower each of our students and campers to find their voice and help them develop the necessary skills to express it respectfully to affect positive change in the world. And for us, that's more than just words. That kind of informs everything we do. Our goal is to make our students and our campers global citizens and lifelong learners. We want them to be able to engage in respectful civil dialogue and respectful oral advocacy, because we really, truly believe this is how we change the world, and we think it's very lacking in the world right now. So that's kind of why we do what we do. If I was to try to make it clear, Westfield has a lot of different components. We're a very engaged community, but I would say we have 5 different prongs. We have academic year debate and model UN classes where children between the ages of 8 up until they go to college from all over the world meet weekly. So some of our children do debates, some do months, some do both. So they come to our weekly class. Then our second prong is we have middle and high school competitive debate and model UN teams that compete very regularly, regionally, nationally, and internationally if they choose. We also do enrichment opportunities for all of our students. Tonight, actually, in a few hours, we're going to a forum on what life will be like in 2040. Last month, we participated in a program put on by the Council of Foreign Relations on Russian-Ukrainian relations. And this isn't like a program geared toward kids. It was geared for adults. The panelists were the former US ambassador to NATO, the former senior director of the European and Russian Affairs and the National Security Council. And our kids get the opportunity to ask questions and engage with these people, because we think our job is for both debaters and munners and engaged citizens to just help them build a very broad and deep knowledge base. So we do everything in our power to do that. And it is certainly a very cool community where that is encouraged and modeled. We also, our fourth prong is we have a myriad of volunteer opportunities. So a high school on every level. So a lot of our high school debaters, we call it paying it forward. They mentor our middle schoolers. They work as judges at middle school competitions. We have Americans working with middle schoolers in Hong Kong and China. We have a group of high schoolers who have met weekly for 2 years. That actually the program was started by Patrick, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, to mentor and tutor other Westfielders who are Rohingya and fled the genocide in Myanmar. And that has been really powerful. We had 3 of our high school young women, one of whom is Julia, who you will also hear from. Last weekend, they introduced the concept of equity to middle schoolers at a huge middle school debate competition, explaining to them and modeling the importance of making our debate and our larger community as safe and accessible and inclusive and welcoming as possible. And then we have summer camp. So I think it's impossible to understand our camp or Westfield without understanding how diverse a community we are, and very intentionally diverse across basically every metric. So socioeconomically, geographically, certainly, racially, ethnically, educationally, religiously, politically. And I like to call it our true superpower. It is, we do outreach. We do this intentionally to underserved communities. We have a program for recently resettled refugees, which is how the Rohingya children made their way to Westfield a couple of years ago. We truly believe the more diverse our community and our camp, the more enriching and educational the conversation for all the participants. So that's kind of what we do. And before we move to camp, I just want to spend one mention on, or 1 second mentioning the success of Westfield competitively. Our kids are really just amazing. And we're very clear with every person who walks into Westfield, every child, like, our belief is that each child who comes to Westfield and does this work has already won. They're learning these incredibly important skills that are going to change the trajectory of their life. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you it's interesting, and you might, we could talk about it for a long time about whether maybe this leads to our success, but we are incredibly successfully on the competitive realm in both debate and MUN. Just this past Sunday, I guess almost a week ago now, we won Yale Osterweiss, which is a big debate tournament, and took top speaker, and Julia was the top speaker. We actually took first, second, sixth, and ninth in this big competition, and that's very normal for us. The final was 2 Westfield teams. And what's really amazing, it's our 6th year in a row winning this tournament, this Yale tournament. We win big tournaments a lot. We were the world champions in International Public Policy Forum a few years ago. And I love this. Last May, in a 48-hour period, Westfield won 4 different tournaments in 4 different countries. So, and we've been really successful in MUN tournaments all over. And you can read about it if you want. But I think it is important, because I think it shows the level of skill that is developed in Westfield. And it's an environment that I think fosters and encourages success on much more than just trophies, but certainly in that realm too. Okay, so let's talk about camp. So are there any, did you have a question? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm not looking.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
You're good. We have actually our first question. If anyone wanted to join semester classes now, we're being asked, is that possible, or do they have to wait until summer camp starts?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Actually, it's totally possible. So our model, we have many kids who start whatever age they make their way to us at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, sometimes high school. And they usually just stay till they go to college. So it's an ongoing class roster. And what we do is people can join in at any point during the academic year. We have them take foundation classes, which are 2 classes, just to no matter what their experience level, if they're just coming in new, to teach them the foundations of debate, or otherwise to assess where they are so that they can fit most seamlessly into an ongoing class. But the way our classes work is they're usually divided into separate groups. There's a parts that we do all together, like the basic kind of, like we always do current events and things that everybody and certain skill development. And then we break into different groups to do debates or simulations based on your experience level. It's a little different with MUN. MUN is a little bit more easier even as a group to work in new people. But the answer is yes. So just reach out to us if you're interested. Thank you for that question. And Madeline, don't hesitate to unmute and just say question if I don't call, say anything right away. Thank you. Okay, so this is our 11th year of summer camp. And basically camp is Debate and Model UN. It's a virtual camp designed for students between the ages of 8 and 19 from all backgrounds with all experience levels.
Actually, a question on that just came in too. What about complete beginners? Someone is asking. I think we know the answer to that.
Complete beginners for camp was the question, or for entering? Either way?
Either way, yeah.
Okay, so for camp, we have people every level. We have lots of beginners, and a lot of people start at camp and then make their way, join our community, up to the most competitive in the country, and I would argue in the world, debaters. So I'll explain how that works, but absolutely. In terms of joining the classes, it depends on the age where you would go, but the answer is yes. And that's how the foundation classes work. Debate and MUN are a lot. You get the foundations and then you jump in. And because we divide, especially in debate, into smaller groups, it works fine. So you'd be with other kids of similarly, new experience. And if ever you ask a question and I haven't fully answered it, just keep asking. And we'll be happy to. Okay, so how it works in debate is we have 2 weeks, the week of June 20th and June 27th. And each week there's different options. You can choose to do debate, you can choose to do MUN, or you can choose to do something called an advanced program, which I'll explain in more detail in a couple minutes. But as we said, we have like from ranked beginner to really, really, competitively successful debaters and MUNers. The 2 weeks stand alone. I know this will be a question. They stand alone. So you can come to one or the other or both. So we have lots of kids who do both. Last year we had 4 weeks of camp and we had lots of kids who did all 4 weeks, and they build on each other. They build on each other as to the individual. Like you get better and you would move into another, like a more advanced group, but you could come to the second week and not the first week, and you would just start. And I'll explain how the day works and it'll probably make more sense, but I just wanted to make sure people understood that. One of my favorite parts of camp, we are not like a traditional debate camp. We have lots of other parts to us, which I think really enrich it. One of my favorite parts, which we've had since the very first camp we held, is a distinguished speakers series. So each day for an hour, we get someone from all sorts of different walks of life who are incredibly intriguing and interesting people who come to talk to us for an hour. And it's not a lecture at the kids. They're here to engage with the kids. Our kids ask so many incredible questions. And I think this might be somewhere on the website, but I, without fail, get all these emails like, that was the favorite thing I ever did in my life. Like I have never talked to a group. We have some really, who you would consider very high-powered people saying, those were the most intelligent questions I ever got. So I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for kids, and all our kids attend. And except for the youngest who do a half day. The 8 and 9-year-olds are on a half day program and they do not, but starting with the 10-year-olds, they do. What we do is we think of it as we were talking about building the substantive knowledge base, that this helps. Like this gives kids by the end of 1 week of camp exposure to 5 different like amazing people talking about different areas. We have really, really interesting people coming. Last year, we had Pastor Ivan Mawari, who was the man who led the revolution to oust Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. He was incredible. And a young child asked him such an amazing question, because the person who took over after Mugabe was ousted is arguably worse. And they said, so everything you did, was it even worth it? And he had a great answer. He said, that's such a good question. And he said, I didn't know how to run a revolution. We just knew something was wrong. And so he started this movement. But he said, you know what? It really was worth it, because once you empower people to find their voice, you never take that away, no matter what the conditions are under. And he still raves about that child's question, because it is a wonderful question. We had Gary Kasparov last year, who's for young people on the call, he's a former world chess champion. who was ranked first in the world for over 15 years. And he is now the head of an international human rights organization. And it was wonderful. We have judges and business people and government officials and scientists and journalists. It's just a wonderful part of camp, and I think a very meaningful part. The people who work at camp, we have summer camp, we call them PAs, program assistants. They come from the most amazing US college debate and MUN teams. They're former high school champions or coaches. They have years of experience. They give wonderful instruction and feedback. We couldn't be happier. We're very blessed with the people that come to work with us. And sometimes it's people who have made their way through Westfield. So we know they were trained well. Okay, any questions? No? Okay. What a day at camp looks like. I think this is really important, especially for a virtual camp, because I'll be honest, the first year we did the virtual camp, I was thinking our camp has always been known as just an incredible experience. Someone once described it as a combination of the head and the heart. And I think that's a really good way to describe it. It's loads of fun. We think that's a really big part of summer camp. So when we first started virtually, we're like, okay, like how can we make that work virtually? And the first year I kept doing it. It's like, for those of you who speak another language or ever lived in another country, I was translating. And I was like, okay, what would the camp do in person? And partway through the week, I realized, oh no, like I don't have to translate. This is an incredible experience. It just works amazingly well and actually has a lot of benefits. But I know sometimes it's hard to think about. And if you're a student, you're like, oh, what's a debate camp anyway? And how would that work virtually? So let me go through what a day looks like. And then Matta, maybe we'll show them for a second. I know they all just entered the virtual campus, but we can show them the virtual campus. So we all gather together in the morning. This is the domestic camp that's on East Coast time. So campers start making their way in at 8:30, and then we gather together at 9. Between 8:30 and 9, as when we show you the virtual campus, there's all these hangout areas and the PAs are in there. And they play games and speaking games and get to talk to people from other countries and other campers. And then we have our morning meeting where we go over what's happening in the day. We always do mindfulness. That's a big important part of Westfield. So we spend a few minutes on that. And we have our much loved speak off competition, which is basically where kids recite from memory speeches or poems. And it's fun and silly and great. And kids love it. And then everybody separates into their group. So a lot of camp is separating into these different levels and groups. So the MUN people go off for a skill development workshop. The debate people go into their different groups. The advanced track is doing their own thing, which I'll explain in a second. And then we have a snack break. And then we have a movement session. So we have an expert yoga instructor who has come for many years now. She's wonderful. And kids are encouraged to move around. I should also say here, we're really aware that different kids and different adults recharge differently. And so we're talking about that with the kids repeatedly during the day. Like if you're someone during a break that is dying to engage with somebody else, we have, as we'll show you in a second, in the virtual campus, all these great places they can go and do that. If you're somebody who needs to go outside and run around and scream for a few minutes, that's great too. So we try to help kids tune into themselves for what they need in the break periods. We found the yoga to be great. And then we go into the distinguished speaker.
I have a quick question for you, Anne, from the chat.
Sure.
So someone's asking, what should parents be doing while kids are in camp? Do they need to be present? What are sort of the expectations around that?
Oh, that is a wonderful question. So basically, once camp begins, the campers are fully engaged. So with the exception of making sure that like the youngest campers, if you have an 8 and 9-year-old or a child who needs help logging into the Zoom call in the beginning of the day, parents really don't need to plan to be involved in camp at all. Obviously, given that it's virtual, the one thing we always say is we can't ensure the physical safety of your children during camp hours. So just we make sure that we ask you to give us multiple ways to contact you if we should see something and need to reach out to you. But other than that, the only thing that we warmly invite parents to, well, 2 things. One is at the end of the week, and you'll get information about this on Friday, we have a big closing ceremony and you get to watch your kids debate or do MUN, and each child is individually recognized. We think that's really important. And then we share a virtual ice cream hour or ice cream party. So that they're invited to. And the other thing we have invited them to, which is another gift of virtual, is parents are invited to watch the speakers, which is really fun. And a number of parents did last year. So we asked you not to engage because we want that space to be held for the kids. But it's a wonderful thing. So you can listen to each of the speakers. But other than that, we're fine. The kids are, fine to work on their own. Okay, then after that, we have a lunch break. And again, kids can be totally by themselves. We had lots of kids. We actually had different places on the virtual campus. One was for the kids who wanted to get crazy together. One was for kids who wanted quiet conversation. There were places where people could make new friends and kind of go into a quiet room. And then we have a full debate round in the afternoon or a Model UN simulation, depending on which track you're in. And then we have public speaking games and a closing meeting. And Madeline, maybe it would be worth it to just show the virtual campus quickly. I know you all entered it.
Sure. So I will share my screen quickly and we can take a peek at the virtual campus. So this is the virtual campus. It's on our website. When you log in, so we're all, as you all know, we're all in our main meeting house right now. Maybe Anne, do you want to give a little rundown of everything else that we have here?
Yeah, I think the big thing, we give a really detailed introduction when they come to camp. I think the things like what you're seeing, the library, I want to go back up to the library. There's really cool parts. So we have a library, we have a 4-square court, and that was where the kids who really wanted to be, kind of crazy during lunch would hang out. If you notice, each of our houses are named after a famous orator, and in the library, kids can find information about each of them. There's also wonderful resources for debaters and munners in the library. We have all these different competitions at camp. So we have a Fountain of Champions. We have a wishing well where we ask for suggestions.
And I just want to add to that the summer camp virtual campus is slightly different from the semester virtual campus. So not that important right now, but just a heads up. We have sort of summer camp specific things that are just that add a little fun sparkle just to the virtual campus.
Thank you, Maddie. The other thing I want to add about camp is we have all sorts of fun camp things. So we have daily dress up themes that the kids really participate in. So they'll get the themes when they sign up and they wear costumes. We have a traditional challenge on Monday, an Oreo challenge. We have the speak off I mentioned, we have a puzzle challenge every day that Seamus, our PA of many years, a former Westfielder, does. He's brilliant, and they're very challenging, which was a lot of fun. So all sorts of different fun camp things that we do during the day as well. The other thing I want to mention is we firmly believe that all students should have access to this kind of learning, regardless of their financial means. So we have usually between 20 and 25% of our campers are on some form of financial aid. So if somebody wants to attend camp, we don't want money or anything at Westfield. We don't want money or resources to ever prevent that. So you can feel free, it's on the website, and you can feel free to reach out about that if you have any questions. I think like what makes us different is we really, really structure like whole person development. We want kids, learning is always our top priority, learning to be really critical thinkers and engaged, respectful speakers so that they can go out and speak. Our job isn't telling them what to believe, but it's giving them the skills so they can take their beliefs and present them to the world in a way that the world can engage with. They get the chance to engage with these deep thinkers in various fields, and they get their chance to put this new knowledge they've gotten to work then in their debate rounds and their MUN simulations. So I'm going to stop here. Are there any questions? And then I'm just going to talk about the advanced program and the international model quickly, and then we'll get to our debate.
No questions so far.
Okay, good. Okay, so the way the advanced program works, and all the details are on the website, but basically it's a version of our debate program for curious high schoolers who want an extra challenge. So there's 3 different tracks. There's a transition to collegiate, an advanced intermediate, and an advanced topic intensive beginner. So how these are different than, it's conceptually the same as even beginner debaters with a couple changes. One change is in the morning, all the advanced programs go to what is in essence a mini college level course. They're phenomenal. Like in the past, we've done things like climate change or artificial intelligence or educational inequity, game theory, different forms of philosophical theories. And all these 3 tracks in the advanced program, which you get to through application, because we want to make sure the kids are ready for that level. So they all do that in the morning. And then in the afternoon, they break into their different levels. So transition to collegiate is very high powered, intensive skill development. These are kids who have already achieved regular success at national or international tournaments and are looking to transition to collegiate debater or bring their skills and knowledge to even a higher level. That's always taught by a very highly successful current or former collegiate debater. Last year, we had someone from Princeton. The year before, we had the captain in the Harvard team. Like it's a high level program. The second level is advanced intermediate. So and that transition to collegiate is only for rising juniors, seniors, or rising college freshmen. The advanced intermediate is open for any high school debater who really wants to focus on improving their game. It's really appropriate for experienced high school debaters of any age, and we consider experienced rising 9th graders on a case-by-case basis when they apply. And then the advanced topic intensive beginner is for kids who want to go to the content in the morning to this mini college class, but are beginner debaters. So what they do is they go with the advanced program in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we break them into learning to debate on an intensive time frame, kind of, because they have less time and not having the morning skill development. So they're on their own track, which is a little more intensive. Okay, does that make sense? And again, everything is on the website. So if people have questions about the website, okay, just check the website. And then I want to just briefly introduce the international model, which we've had for several years now, which is a wonderful opportunity to get international kids and American kids together at camp. So international, I think the summary, the easy version or the short version is that international kids have the opportunity to come and do camp. Anybody's welcome to do it on, with the American kids, the whole camp. It obviously depends on your time zone. It is most problematic for Asians. So traditionally we have a hybrid model where you can go to the first part of camp, which with the domestic kids all the way through the speaker. And then you go to bed, and then you get up and you have what would be the afternoon at the domestic camp. You have that in the morning. So we have a special group in the morning to do debater model UN. It has worked incredibly well. And we love it. And oh my gosh, it's great. Like when we're with the speakers, and we had somebody from Uganda last year, lots of people from China and Hong Kong and Brazil, and just asking the questions and engaging with these ideas, it adds a lot of depth, I think, to the conversation. Okay, any questions, Meta? Oh, good. Don't hesitate, because I know this is a lot, and it's a little bit of a different model, so we're happy to clarify. All right, I think that's all I'm going to say for now, and I think we're going to move into the debate, which is a treat. And for those of you who are interested in Model UN, as I always tell our students, to be a successful munner, you have to have the skills of a successful debater. You don't have to do debate, but you need those skills. I think if you do debate a mun, I think you're going to rule the world, because I think they're different, but they're very compatible, and they build on each other. So you're in, as I said, for a treat. I'm going to give you a 2-second, maybe a little bit more than that, but not much, brief introduction to debate. Then I'm going to introduce Julia and Patrick to you. And then you'll get the opportunity, as I said, to participate in this debate as well, and I'll explain how. So basically, there's lots of different styles of debate. What you're going to witness right now is primarily parliamentary, it's called, although we're tweaking it a little bit, so you see a little bit of policy too. We're going to do a cross-ex exchange, because that's fun to watch, I think, and interesting. But at its core, all debate is the same. It's basically you have something you're debating, an issue, it's called a topic, a motion, resolution, whatever. And there's two sides. There's a side that's in favor of it, and there's a side that's against it. Both sides have to make arguments to persuade the judges. In your essence, you're going to be participants and judges, although we won't ask for your reason for decision, as they call it. But basically, they make it's not just assertions, which is what we hear in everyday conversations. They have to back that up with their reasoning, evidence, and they have to tell us why we should care about those arguments. So Julia's on the side in this style of debate. It's called the government that's proposing this motion, this topic we're going to hear them debate. And so she has to make these arguments. And then Patrick, when he gets up on the opposition, will have to tell us what's wrong with Julia's arguments. And good debaters know that like lots of what your opponents say is going to be true, right? So if Patrick just stood up and said, everything she just said was horrible, like that doesn't make sense. Julia's a great debater. She's not going to say horrible things. So his job is going to be say like, yeah, that is true, but this is what I'm going to say about her argument is more important. It's called weighing. And it's a really important skill. So I always say there's like 2 debates going on in every debate. That's one debate. The second thing that's going on in the debate is Patrick is going to have independent reasons why this motion should fail. So not just what's wrong with Julia's arguments, the one she raised, but his own reasons. And then Julia, when she gets up again, would have to rebuild, like say, respond to Patrick's arguments, and then the arguments that were responsive to hers, and then also respond to the new ones he raised. In the interest of time, we're not going to do a full debate. What we're going to do is have Julia raise her arguments, and then she's going to do something called a cross-examination. So she'll say, I now stand open for cross-examination. And Patrick will have a couple minutes to ask her one-on-one questions that she'll respond to. Then Patrick will respond to Julia and raise his arguments, and then he'll do the cross-ex. Then depending on the time, we'll give them a couple minutes to do the rebuttal. Rebuttal isn't re-saying the arguments, it's doing that weighing and explaining why their side won, like summarizing, crystallizing everything and condensing it. So there's one fun part in Parley that we really like, and this is a part you can participate in, which is called POI. It stands for point of information. When Julia's talking, Patrick can stand on a POI. Madeline, can you demonstrate the POI? If I do it, my screen is weird out. It's this really weird thing. So it's loosely based on the English Parliament. And the kids love this. It's people stand like that, and they do stand like that for POIs. And it's holding your wig on and showing you have no weapon, which especially our younger kids think is hilarious. So what we're going to do is usually just your opponents can ask POIs, but we're going to invite everybody and warmly encourage people to ask a POI. So if Julia's talking and you want to ask a POI, write it in the chat and Madeline will POI it. So she'll just make that and then Julia can answer it. Patrick, you're welcome. You're welcome to POI each other too. Be brave. It's very fun. You will get addicted to debate. And I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to say. So I'm going to introduce now Julia to you because she's government. She'll go first. The motion we're going to debate is in a world where COVID no longer poses a threat to public safety, this House believes that work from home should remain the norm, which we think is an interesting motion. And I'm going to invite Julia to also just explain what she's doing really briefly in the speech. And I'm looking up. Julia has won so much that I had to have her text me her summary so I would remember. Julia has won the New York Parliamentary Debate League twice. She made it to the finals twice in McGill, an international, in a different style of debate, something called British Parliamentary, and got top speaker. She won Yale Oscar Weiss Sunday, as I told you, and got top speaker. And she's made it to the eliminations or won speaker awards at 10 other tournaments, some international, 10 plus other tournaments, and currently ranked 10th debater in the nation. The one thing I want to add about Julia, because I think this is unbelievably inspirational, she started debating last year. She was a new student last fall, which is unbelievable. Yeah, definitely. All right, so Julia, you are on. And if you want to say a couple minutes about, or talk for a couple seconds about, Westfield and camp, that would be great. Your experience.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, hey everyone, it's really great that you're all interested in Westfield. I am so happy to get to speak about it because I absolutely love Westfield. I think it's given the really unique thing about it, I think, compared to other debate groups or anything that you'll find is that it gives a lot of different things. So I started during the pandemic and Westfield gave me access to an entirely new social network. I've made some of the closest friends that I've ever met through Westfield. It's given me an opportunity to be competitive. So if you have a competitive spirit or if you're interested in competing, it's a competitively successful team. really, really highly ranked teachers that know a lot about the format. And it's also been just incredibly educational and incredibly intellectually stimulating. Every week we, talk about current events. Every week we talk about different debate topics. We talk about debate strategy. So having access to people from across the country and across the globe that are interested, that are curious, that are competitive if you want them to be, I think it's a pretty rare culmination of a lot of different things. And so it's a great package deal, I've found. So what I'm going to do in this speech, I'm the first government speaker. I'm going to be all the government speakers in this round, but in a normal round of debate, you would have a partner that would give some of your other speeches. In this debate, I'm going to do two things. The first thing I'm going to do is introduce what sometimes is called a model, sometimes it's called definitions, which is just clarifying how this debate is going to happen. So where does this motion apply? What do some of the words mean? How might it be implemented if that's relevant? So just kind of a clarification. And then I'm going to introduce arguments. And these are just independent arguments for why side government is the better side in this debate. So as I'm talking, if anyone has any POIs or anything I say, you're like, that doesn't sound right, or I know a response to that, put it in the chat. And Mata will POI me, and then I will answer that question. So in that case, if everybody's ready, I'm going to start my speech. Awesome. The constraint of physical work has held too many people back for too long, so I'm incredibly proud to propose. Firstly, on the model or clarification, I think it's pretty clear that this debate and this norm only happens in jobs where it's possible for the job to be done virtually. So this isn't relevant to plumbers or construction workers. It's relevant to the vast majority of jobs that are related to paperwork, that are related to numbers, that are related to, anything that can be done virtually, not anything that can't. The other thing to note is that this debate can happen anywhere in the world, not just in the West, not just in the East, but anywhere. And we're going to talk more about that later, where it might be viable for this type of job to be available to people, or this type of transition or norm to be applicable. Then I'm going to introduce three arguments. Firstly, on economic accessibility. Secondly, on women in the workplace. And thirdly, on individual happiness. Firstly, on economic accessibility, I want to flag that there's a problem in the status quo, which is that people are economically constrained in the place where they live. That means you only have access to the job market where you directly live. That might mean that you're only able to access jobs in your city or in your state, but not across the country. It also might mean that you're constrained by your own country, which means you might have to do something like, if you want to get a better job, leave your country, get a worker's visa, leave your family behind, and go. We think that we solve this problem. I want to flag exactly what OP has to defend. For people that live in economically unprofitable areas, so maybe rural areas where there's not a ton of access to jobs, they have two choices on OP's side. Firstly, they have to leave their families and their communities behind and go into more economically prosperous areas. That might mean mega cities, which are overcrowded, there's bad sanitation, and they don't have access to things like good housing, and they have to leave their families behind. Or they have to stay in the economically unprofitable areas and make no money. We solve this problem for two reasons. Firstly, because just like straightforward, people are able to stay in the places where they live that might be economically unprosperous and be able to get a job, any job that they want, because it's virtual, so they can access new jobs and they don't have to move, which means they can stay with their family. The other thing to note is there's more likely that companies are going to go into unprofitable areas, i.e. go into rural areas and do things like provide internet access or provide computers, because they know that there's a ton of access to workers that they can find in these areas, which means there's more access to companies actually trying to find these workers, go into the areas, make them more profitable, and train the workers because they have access to a job force. The impacts of this argument are twofold. Firstly, individuals are happier because they don't have to leave their families or their communities behind to find jobs if they need it. But secondly, because communities are more prosperous, because when more people are able to live in economically disadvantaged places and make money, there's higher tax revenues, which can go to improving the general community. Second argument, why is this better for women in the workplace? For two reasons. Firstly, there's a problem in the status quo, which is that oftentimes women are conditioned to think that they have to make the choice to either be at home and take care of their family or go into work. Oftentimes women feel pressured to have to stay at home because there are social condition pressures to make them feel that way. On our side of the house, when it's a norm that you can work from home and stay at home while working, women feel less inclined to have to make that trade-off in the very first place. So a lot of women that might be capable of working, but are generally feel like they might not feel like they want to are more likely to go into the job force on our side. But secondly, for the women that do work at home on both sides of the house, the work is seen as more respected because it's the norm that people work from home. So it's not like, oh, she's the woman that had to stay home and take care of her kids, so her work is less valuable. It's everyone has to stay home. There are screaming kids in the background of everyone's computer. So the work that people do when they stay at home is more respected generally. Third argument, which is just general happiness. I want to flag that 9 to 5 is a really, really emotionally strenuous type of job to have to do. On our side, we solve this type of stress in 2 ways. Firstly, because people generally just have more time. They cut down maybe 2 hours from having to commute each day. Yes, I'll take that POI.
Thank you. My question, or a question from the chat, is for women who want to work at home, won't they just basically have to then do double the work, take care of the kids and take care, not only for women, but take care of the job and take care of the kids at the same time? It's like double the work.
It's a good question. I think the answer, I'll finish this quickly. I think the answer is that now men also have to take care of the children because the kid is screaming in both the mom and the dad's computer. So both parents, because they're both there, the dad can't just say, oh, that's my wife's responsibility because she's at home. If both parents are there, they're going to do it. Lastly, very quickly on happiness, people have more time when they don't have to commute or be physically far away, but they also are around their families more. They're around their home, which means they're able to be around people they love more, do activities in their house, do yoga on a lunch break, generally be able to have more flexibility in terms of their job, so they're happier. For that reason, I'm incredibly proud to propose. I stand open for cross-ex.
Okay. Give me 1 second to get my notes up. Uh, 2 minutes?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So to start with your first argument around economic accessibility, would you say, like specifically because you framed this as a global debate, would you say that most rural areas in the world, specifically the economically disenfranchised areas of the world, have access to technology to work from home?
I think definitely some of them do, but I think we also flag that there's an increased incentive to access this new job force because it's much cheaper to go in and buy people computers than it is to do things like build roads, build a company, like train all the workers to, I don't know, do the job in an office. So it's comparatively cheaper for companies to train these workers on our side.
So what you're getting at here, right, is that it's cheaper for them to access this rural labor market than it is to, like, under a work from home area. That's what you're trying to get at here. If work from home is normalized, that'll make it so that they're more likely to access this rural labor market instead of investing in the infrastructure that'd be required to access it in the status quo.
Yeah, and which means they're more likely to go into the communities in the first place.
Well, yeah, I kind of want to flag that for a second, because wouldn't it just be more likely for them to skip the middleman of having to actually spend the money to buy people computers and instead just touch into any of the labor markets around the world, specifically in rich areas which already have the technology from work from home?
Right, but I still think that there's gradients, right? There's still poorer people in the, say, the Western world that have access to computers, but aren't the people that are the multimillionaires that benefit from this for all of the other reasons I gave.
Yeah, but let's say that you have a paper company in rural Bangladesh, right? In the status quo, without work from home, they would have to, spend the money in those areas, invest in roads, invest in the current labor force. In a world with work from home, couldn't they just hire people from Detroit?
Well, it depends on the company, right? It depends on how it works. So in some cases, it's non-comparative because the job might not be related to computers. But I think that they're still able to get comparatively cheaper labor from these people. The reason they go in is because the labor is cheaper, but it's not because of whatever how trained the workers are. But we think that it's more likely that they're going in because it's cheaper to do that than pay workers in the West 3 times the money to do things like work, translating the same numbers or something.
All right. Thank you very much. And we thank she is called the Prime Minister in this style, the Prime Minister, for her eloquent comments. So I'm now going to call on the Leader of the Opposition. I will introduce Patrick. So Patrick is a long time Westfielder, like one of the longest. He is now, he actually taught at Westfield last year in a gap year, and he is now a freshman in college. He was incredibly successful in both debate and MUN. He won 14 debate tournaments and received 43 awards. He and his partner, who was a current teacher at Westfield, were first in the East when they were partnered in Patrick's senior year, and second in the country in terms of parliamentary debate. Patrick was the first person ever to qualify. He represented America at Worlds. He was the first person to qualify as a freshman. He qualified as a sophomore, and he lost on a tiebreaker as a junior. So he traveled to Australia and to South Africa. He helped lead the team, the International Public Policy Forum team. I mentioned that won the world and became world champions, and has done a lot of other debate events, and he received over 20 awards and won. He was a very active runner. And he also was a PA at camp last summer. So Patrick has worn a variety of hats in Westfield. So Patrick, I will turn it to you.
Yeah, before I get to my speech, I think I just would say overall, I absolutely adore debate in Model United Nations. It's kind of, there's the reason why I've spent a very large percentage of my weekends over the last like 10 years doing it. I think that it has been an incredibly influential aspect of my life in shaping who I am, both like academically and in every other part of my life. I've met some of my greatest friends, or most of my greatest friends, through Westfield. And I think that I have been involved in every summer camp in either as a student or a PA since the beginning of Westfield. There might have been one year I missed. And every time without fail, it's a great experience. It's one of my highlights of the summer. So if you have any questions about debate, or I think I might be one of the only representatives from Model UN side of things here. So if you have any questions for those kind of things, feel free to ask me. I did one for a very long time in middle school and high school as well. I'd be happy to talk about that. Okay, without further ado, I can get to my points. 4 minutes, right?
Yeah. If you get a bunch of POIs, then you can have a little bit more. I should have said that to you too, Julia.
I ate something with hot sauce earlier and just got in my eye again, so sorry about that.
Stop
This
rubbing
is like
your
the
eye.
third time I've done it in the last hour. Okay. So if I'm blinking, that's what's going on. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this speech is I'm first going to start by bringing up 2 quick arguments on my side of the house about why I think that work from home should not be the norm in a post-COVID society. And then after that, I'm going to use whatever time I have left, which will likely be very little, to refute my opponent's arguments. So the first argument I'm giving you as to why I think that work from home is should not be the norm in a post-COVID society is due to the social benefit of having in-person work. I think that my opponent really brought up something very true in her speech, right? She talked about how 9 to 5 is an incredibly difficult experience, right? It's incredibly time consuming. It is for the vast majority of people in the world, their work life is the thing that takes up the most amount of their waking hours, right? And so I think it's really crucial when we are discussing this to understand that work cannot just be a means to an end in society, but rather it must be designed around the understanding that it is a core and central aspect of each individual's lives. Now, what does that mean in the context of today's debate? It means that being locked in an office in your house, trying to keep out all of the distractions and not engage with anyone else, looking at a computer screen for however many hours 9 to 5 is a day, because I'm bad at math off the top of my head, like 9 or something, is incredibly problematic, right? The reason why this is problematic is because it's basically bringing us into our own antisocial lives, right? It's much more difficult to connect with individuals. I'll take your POI in a second, right? It's much more difficult to connect with coworkers, to grow and build relationships, right? I think that it is probably easier in a situation like Westfield, right? Where when I'm doing something virtual with people I've known for years, I might be more that's not going to be a terrible social situation for me. But if you're starting a new job, maybe you're in a new city, you don't know anyone, maybe you don't have family, which is something we don't really see referenced that often by the Gov side of this debate. it can be an incredibly isolating and lonely experience to remove from the core aspect of your life, basically any social engagement. Yes, Madeline.
Two very quick POIs that are related from the crowd.
Sure.
Can't workers get their social via non-work related activities? And second, doesn't work from home give a different social experience, such as having more time with one's family?
Okay, yeah, I will engage with both of those, right? So the first one with the family thing is I think that we are ignoring the fact that an incredibly large portion of workers like just don't have family, right? Like we're talking about people in their 20s and 30s, people who are still trying to establish their social situations, people who are going through an anxiety and depression crisis right now, like the highest percentages of young workers who have those things in recorded history, right? These are the people who are going to be even more socially isolated. And additionally, I don't actually think that this increases the amount of time you have with family because employers still expect you to be spending your time on work, right? They expect you to be in a room, a locked room working, right? They're not expecting you to have like family being around you all the time. So we think that you're still going to have most of the time with family, with the exception of like commuting, which we think is a fair argument from the other side. Additionally, with the social thing is we think that social is really hard. And like, yeah, you can do social outside. Sometimes it'll be easier for some people than others outside of work. But we think at the end of the day, kind of what I was talking about earlier, is that we think that it has to be viewed as social being in work being a core fundamental part of your life, right? Work is not a means to an end. It is not just a way to make a company money, but it rather has to be a fundamentally beneficial aspect within itself for the workers too. That's what we think we should be striving for. Okay, I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra time because I answered the POIs, and also 4 minutes is way
You
too
normally
slow.
can't do this in a debate, but
No, you cannot. Okay, so I'm going to skip my second point and go right to refutation. So the first point we get is economic accessibility for my opponent. I think that in my cross X, I kind of pointed out what my refutation this is already, right? We think that what's more likely is this is going to actually even more so take jobs out of rural areas and create economic deserts, because it's going to be a lot more easy to just pay individuals like who live in these mega cities, who already have access to internet, already have this infrastructure. You can completely ignore the developmental costs that businesses often put into rural areas, especially in third world, and just instead like ship it out to like, maybe we're talking about like the largest city in the same country, because it'll still be incredibly cheap labor force, right? Like the labor in like major Malaysian cities is still incredibly cheap compared to rural areas, but they get rid of all of the infrastructure costs. So we actually see a less investment in rural infrastructure. And then I think that with happiness and women in the workforce, what we generally argue here, as I would get into in my rebuttal if we end up having them, I think you just have to weigh the benefits of like increased social accessibility and connection to the community with the negatives my opponents showed up. And I think that our social impacts are much larger. Thank you.
and now you stand open for cross X.
Oh, I stand open for cross X. I'm sorry, I haven't done policy in so long.
All right, I'm now unmuted. Okay. Socializing is exhausting, and at work, you oftentimes have to socialize with coworkers you hate because you can't choose them. Don't you have more energy to socialize with friends and family and people you actually choose when you're able to selectively allocate that social energy?
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, you're going to have to deal with coworkers who you don't like dealing with in either side of the house, right? You're still going to have to like do work with them and communicate. I think the difference here is that when you're in person, like when you have a shared break room, when you're getting lunch together, these kind of things, it allows for you to more purposefully build social connections and meet people. So like, even though, yes, it might be people you really dislike, we think that that just sort of comes with the nature of socializing. And we think in general, it is still significantly better than just being locked in a room all day.
All right, so just to add a level of comparative to this, on your side, a lot of times people have to commute hours away from their family or their homes, or sometimes even leave their country in order to access jobs. Isn't that a social and emotional trade-off in terms of being away from your community, in terms of timing, that is actually really bad?
Yeah, so I think like the issues surrounding migrant labor are like incredibly complex and difficult. I also think that it's like pretty non-comparative to say that if we make like white collar jobs work from home, then all of a sudden, like, migrant labor is going to end, especially when most migrant labor is like construction, specifically in the Middle East, and also like nanny work and housekeeping jobs which just are not going to be work from home like ever. So I just don't think that this really is a debate about like migrant labor in that way. It's going to happen on either side.
Okay, and just to wrap it up, you kind of mentioned people who suffer from mental illness and how this affects them. Isn't it like this norm better for people with mental and physical disabilities because they aren't stigmatized from when they have to stay at home and when they have to work from home? That type of work isn't stigmatized?
I mean, I think that probably due to the fact that work from home has just become more normalized, right? This like it isn't something that is going to not exist on my side of the house. It's just going to be something that isn't the norm. I think that we are going to see a reduction in the stigma around work from home in either world. With that being said, I actually think that I could see major issues with work from home for people with mental health issues, right? It's removing the social that they get throughout their day now that they have to actually go out and put themselves in difficult situations that can be anxiety producing to get social outside of work. Additionally, if they need a day off for mental health reasons, right? Like, they just can't do work for whatever reason on that day. Now that they've removed the ability to just call in sick, right? The expectation is for them to still show up and do 9 hours that day or however many from home, instead of being able to actually get the respite they need without saying, hey, I have a mental health issue to their boss, I need a day off, which is likely to just like not be well received by many, many bosses.
All right, I think that's time. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. I think what we're going to do is we are going to hold off with rebuttals. Yes, we'll clap for all the people who are muted and can't clap. I'm sure you're clapping in your homes. That was wonderful. And I hope that the very huge thanks to Julie and to Patrick. And I hope that gives you a little insight into kind of the level of complexity and critical thinking that debaters engage in. I want to highlight one thing they said, which I think is really important. And I know this is true for both of them. Like, and I think it's really interesting. Julie has only done Westfield virtually, and some of her best friends are from Westfield. So this concern that like, which I totally understand, that like, oh, you won't connect with, you really do. I think, I would argue you connect more at Westfield. I think Westfield I think kids want to jump into complex ideas like what you just heard Patrick and Julia discuss, and they need teachers or PAs who believe in their ability to do that, their ability to handle challenging subjects. And they need a community of peers who are willing to argue with them about things. And I think Westfield gives them that chance. I think at camp and during the year. So I think what we'll do right now, Madeline is going to explain to you how you can register. And we're going to offer, we always do this, we've done it every year, a special discount for, we're so grateful to you for coming and hearing about camp and hearing about Westfield. So she'll explain how that works. And then any questions, if people have to go, that's fine, but I am certainly willing to stay. And Patrick and Julie have offered to answer questions. If you have questions from, they both represent kind of different experiences in Westfield, since Julie is newer, but did the deep dive and has become a huge and integral part of our community. And Patrick is a long timer. How does that feel, Patrick, to be a long timer? But so Madeline, I'm going to turn it to you and then we'll do questions.
So so first of all, there is, before I get into the details of registration, etc., I will quickly say that there is a discount for the open house. Oh, wait, quick question. Someone was asking in the chat, if someone's applying for financial aid, should they apply first and then do the form for financial aid, or do the financial aid form first and then?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you can make an account if you're coming to the domestic camp. We use a service called Camp Docs. You can make the account and enter all the information, but you can't register without paying. So I think what we do, and Deidre, correct me if I'm wrong if you know the answer to this, but I think you go ahead and you register, you make your account, you go to every step till you can't go further, and then you fill out the financial aid form. And then once you hear from the financial aid decision, then we go and adjust things. That's
yes.
Okay. Good.
Excellent. And the financial aid forms, if anyone wants them, I can send them in the chat at the end, but they are on our website, we have separate financial aid application forms, one for US students and one for international students. And you can also email anyone who has any sort of question about this can email our main email, which I'm sending in the chat right now, which sends you right to Deidre, admin@westfieldacademy.net. If you can't find something on the website or you have any questions, definitely feel free to send an email. So yes, we have a discount for anyone who's at the open house today. If you register for camp in the next 24 hours, you get an additional, if you register for US camp in the US hours, let me pull up the amounts here. Yes. You get an additional, wait, why don't I have it written down here? I think it's $15 off if you register for camp in the next 24 hours for US camp. And that's on top of the early bird discount that you already have. So the early bird discount is $25 off per week. And then on top of that, you get $15 off per week if you're registering for US camp. So that's a total of $40 off per week. If you're registering for the international hybrid camp, you get the $25 discount off of each week, the early bird discount. And then on top of that, you get a $25 open house discount off for each week. Oh, we have a question in the chat as well. Is summer camp 1 week long? Yes, we have 2 1-week sessions. You can either do the first week, the second week, or both weeks because the content changes. So yes, each session is 1 week long, but we have 2 separate weeks. Anne, you want to add something?
I would just say I think this is probably accurate. The majority of kids with 2 weeks will do both weeks. You don't have to, but
Yeah.
I would say that would probably. And one thing I would encourage people to do, especially if you're new, is do a week of debate and a week of MUN. Or even if you're a longtime debater, to try a week
Yeah.
of MUN, because I think they're very good to go. They go well together.
Totally. So yes, if you're registering, if you're a US camper or if you're an international student and you're registering for the US camp hours, you go on our website and maybe I'll send the link to the registration page in the chat. And you go to this page, you click on the relevant link and you're brought to a service called Camp Doc, where you create an account, all the information is right there, and you go ahead, you'll get the early bird discount automatically taken off, and then you will get the open house discount as a refund early next week. So that is how to do that if you're a US camper or if you're an international student registering for US camp hours. If you are registering for the hybrid international camp, we have a slightly separate system for that, and I will send the international camp page here in the chat. When you register for this camp, if you're registering for 1 week of camp and you want to get the open house discount, you use open house 25 as a coupon code when you register. If you are doing both, you enter the coupon code open house 50, which gets you $25 off each week of camp. And obviously, if you have any questions, any issues through any point of the registration process, you can email Deidre at the admin, or we also have contact us links all over the website, and we are obsessive email checkers, so we're there. And yes, we also have something really cool that I want to point out, which is our Happy Camper referral program. So this is a really unique way, for us to build our community and get to just grow Westfield all over the world, but also to get serious discounts on camp. So with the Happy Camper referral program, you can receive $50 for each paid camper that you bring to the program who is new to Westfield Academy, which means their family's completely new to Westfield, never attended a class or a camp or a program. And the $50 is paid out at the end of the camp week. And there's no limit to the number of number of new people that you can bring. So for each person from a new family to Westfield, you could get $50 discount. So yeah, keep that in mind and reach out if you want details about that. What else? Is there anything else I should bring up at this point, Anne? Any
The only thing
questions
I
anyone
was-
has?
I was going to suggest just maybe putting the social media link too, because they can stay up on everything
Yes.
in the social media.
Yes, we're
That'll-
very active on social media. Some of you may have come from social media. Let me put in the Instagram for a second. Our Instagram and our Facebook are always, actually we have lots of fun stuff going on there too. We have like trivia program on Tuesdays. We have throwback Thursdays. We also have updates on all the competitions we do. And we have lots of content about different issues and different initiatives that our students are working on in their communities. So it's really cool. There's lots of fun stuff going on there. The dates for the 2 weeks, someone just asked in the chat. So the first week of camp is June 20th to June 24th.
Mhm.
And the second week of camp is June 27th to July 1st. Right? Yeah.
Right. And Maddie, you know what we should add to, I think I wasn't clear on this. For 8 and 9-year-olds, they have the option to do a half day. 8-year-olds should definitely do the half day.
Yep.
9-year-old, to kind of, if you're close to 10, we can do it. With everything with Westfield, we try to do it on an individual basis, what the best fit is. But that option is on Camp Dexter.
Excellent. So yeah, again, the Instagram's in the chat. I should send our Facebook too, because we also post everything on Facebook. If you're more of a Facebook user than an Instagram user. And does anyone else have any questions about the registration process, discounts, financial aid? Anything else anyone has a question about here?
Or anything at this point. And if you have a question for Patrick or Julia about their experiences or experiences at camp, anything about MUN, now is a great time to ask it. But as Madeline said, if you think about it in an hour, don't worry about it. Just reach out to us.
Yeah, our emails are
We'll
open.
answer.
I'll
Sometimes
add
it's-
my email in here too,
Oh, thanks, Meta.
just in case anyone wants to send an email to me instead of Deidre. It's okay, we can compete for emails. Okay, no questions so far, so I think we're good.
All right. Well, we just want to thank, I want to thank everyone on the screen, Madeline, Deidre, and Patrick and Julia again. And I want to thank each of you for coming. We really appreciate it. And we are excited and grateful for your interest in Westfield. And we hope to see your child in our community. We would love to welcome them and your family. So thank you very much, everybody.
Excellent. I have one question in the chat because someone was
Sure.
having an issue with the code. So I'm just going to send them my email.
Okay, that's a good
And-
idea.
Okay, this is a good point. I tried to apply the code, but it didn't work for US camp. So for US camp, the process is a little different. The early bird discount is already applied. And so you go through and you check out, but you'll get the open house discount as a refund at the beginning of this coming week. So you can go ahead, check out. Everyone who registers within these 24 hours, we'll see on the list, you will get the $15 per week discount paid back early next week. Great, question answered. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks, Julie and
everybody.
Patrick.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And we'll hope to see you again.
Bye.